Hi again, it's Blake with North Winds Wilderness School. Welcome back to another beautiful day here in northern Wisconsin. I want to talk to you today about an often misunderstood piece of outdoor equipment. This little thing right here. This is called the ferro rod or the ferrocerium rod. Today we're going to talk about the right way to use it, the right thing to call it, and why it's such an important piece of your outdoor gear. The first thing I want to tell you about this is you're going to hear a lot of people call this a flint and steel. That is incorrect. That is not a correct piece of information. A flint and steel is a piece of hardened high carbon steel that is struck against a hard silica containing rock, flint, chert, something like that, to create a spark. This is an iron and magnesium composite with a few other ingredients that, when struck with the sharp edge of a hard piece of steel or stone, creates a very hot spark which you can use to start a fire. There are instances in which I have found it easier to use a ferro rod than a match or a lighter. Depending on the weather, depending on your conditions, the spark that comes from these is hot enough that it will always start a fire regardless of the conditions. I have even done experiments, which maybe we'll show this in a future video, where I've dunked this in water, pulled it out, and started a fire with it. You'll see lots of different ways that people will use these things. Today I'll show you some of the wrong ways, and I'll show you the right way. We'll talk about a couple different ways to use it to actually make a fire, and then it's cold out, so I'm going to use it to actually make a fire because I want to warm up. Stick around. When it comes to this piece of equipment, the ferro rod or ferrocerium rod, like we said before, there's several types out there. There's really expensive ones, there's really cheap ones, there's really big ones, there's really little ones. There's this thing, which is a bar of magnesium with a little tiny ferro rod, and the idea is that you're going to shave off the magnesium and then strike the ferro rod into the magnesium to create your fire. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you I've never been able to make it work. I've tried, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 times. The ferro rod works just fine because, like I said, a ferro rod is a ferro rod is a ferro rod is a ferro rod. But they're very small, so they wear out quickly. And this magnesium, if you can shave it off, you're going to dull your knife up. And I've never been able to get enough off of here to actually make a fire. If you take the time to build a tinder bundle, I've mentioned this before, I'm going to say it again, we will do a tinder bundle video probably this winter. So if you take the time to build a good tinder bundle, you should not need to scrape magnesium off of this and wreck the edge on your knife. These things have a tiny, tiny magnesium rod or ferrocerium rod on them. So I don't think I would waste your time with something like this. You've also got these little things. This looks like it's about 2.5 inches by maybe 1/4 inch. This thing is tiny. It'll throw a decent spark, but it's tiny. It's going to wear out really fast. You can also, I don't have one here, but you can find big ferro rods that are like 6 inches long and 1 inch in diameter. If you don't mind carrying something that big and heavy, I say go for it. They make great sparks. They'll last forever. I have one that I've had for probably 5 years, and it looks like it's been used a few times. So, little magnesium rod, not so great. Big ferro rod, I'm sorry, I just said magnesium rod, I meant ferro rod. Big ferro rod, good. Quality, doesn't really matter. Maybe some are better, maybe some are worse, but they all throw a spark and they all throw a really hot spark. What I'm going to suggest is something cheap like this. I think this was $2. We wrapped duct tape on it so you've got something to hold on to. It's a ferro rod. It'll make fire. To strike it, what you need is a 90-degree edge on a piece of high carbon steel. What we've got here is a pocket knife. Don't strike it with the cutting edge. You're going to ruin your knife. If you keep the blade closed and you've got a good 90 on here, you can throw a spark. I'm going to do that again. You can throw a spark. What I've got here is just a Mora Bushcraft Black. Again, the spine is carved to 90. It throws sparks. Some of these will come with a little striker. It's basically a section cut out of a hacksaw blade. you can use them. They kind of suck. Find a knife with a decent 90-degree spine. You're going to be the happiest. Now, you'll see people all the time when they're using ferro rods go, why can't I start a fire? Why can't I start a fire? It's because that's not how you do it. You can control the sparks a little bit by keeping the knife in place and pulling the rod, or you can throw really big sparks by moving the knife, but you're not going to hit your mark. What you want to do is get your ferro rod down in there and scrape it. That creates really hot, really big sparks that are directed towards where you want them. I'm going to show you one quick, kind of cool trick. It'll work for starting fires. It's not the best option, but it'll work. And then we're going to actually make a fire. If you're anywhere in the north, you probably recognize this. This is birch bark. It's the bark off of the white birch or paper birch. Sorry, I can't talk today. This will burn even when wet because of the oils that are in the bark. So if you take this and you scrape it, you're scraping up little shavings of the bark. That oil is coming up with your little shavings. And you don't have to do a lot. We're basically making a birch bark feather stick right now. A feather stick is another fire making method. We'll talk about that in a future video. What we're gonna do is take our ferro rod, we're gonna set it right down on there, and we're gonna scrape. And you'll see my birch bark is burning all by itself. There's nothing else there. You see how fast it went out? That's why I said it's not the best fire starting method. But if you do this and you're quick and you're careful, you can get a good fire going. Now let me take a second and show you how to really make a fire with this tool. This is a tinder bundle, and this is my kind of tinder bundle. This thing is 6-8 inches across, it's 4 inches thick, it's got 3 or 4 different materials in it. This is a good tinder bundle. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my ferro rod in there and I'm gonna scrape. You see how quickly it took off. This right here, this is why I like big tinder bundles. I don't have to hurry. I'm gonna set this into my fire lay, and I'm just gonna start dropping sticks on top of it. I don't know what kind of wood this is. Some of it might be oak, some might be alder. Might be a little bit of birch in here. But my tinder bundle is so big that the type of wood in my sticks doesn't really matter, because that grass is gonna keep it burning. It's gonna keep this going while those sticks catch. Finally, we have a fire. It's cold out here, so I can finally warm my hands. So remember, you don't need to spend a ton of money on your ferro rod. They all work the same. Bigger is better than smaller. Scrape, don't strike. Remember, aim those sparks. If you're just striking it like this, you're shooting sparks off into space, you're not going to hit your target. Move slowly, move methodically, take the time to prepare. Make a good tinder bundle. Make a good fire lay. 90% of fire making is in the preparation. Thank you for watching. If you found any value in this, please find someone to share it with. If you love the ferro rod, or if you hated this video, let us know in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. I'll see you next time.